Hi, everyone, and welcome to Down the Garden Path podcast. Thank you for joining me here today. We are mid-season in July and mid-gardening season, and lots is going on. And so I'm hearing some rumblings. I'm having people ask me questions. I'm having clients ask me questions, and even neighbors of, different things about this time of the year in the garden and yard. So I wanted to address that and I'm calling this episode Mid-Season Advice. So I thank you again for listening. And this episode is brought to you by Down to Earth Landscape Design, my business. As a landscape designer, I love helping people design and create a beautiful all-season garden in their home as low maintenance as possible. And then I, with the podcast and my newsletter, try to help them, support them in even making it more low maintenance because of the advice and the timely tips that I give. So thank you for listening to this episode of Down the Garden Path. Now, this time of year, everybody is saying, we just had a client email us too about, I'm working on something else, so now I know I need to wait before I can plant. Well, yes. So the big question is, can you plant this time of year? And the answer is yes, you can still plant this time of year. The key is that you're around to water. So when it comes to trees, larger trees and shrubs, you absolutely can plant. Their roots are huge. They have a lot of energy built up in them, and they can withstand being planted midsummer. Now, again, watering. So when it comes to trees, if you need to be away for the weekend, there are things like the tree watering bag that I mentioned here on the show before. So, it's a slow drip. You fill the bag, it's a slow drip. It might take, 6 hours or so for the water to drip out and give your tree a nice slow drink. So that can get you through the weekend. Other than that, if you are around, water something thoroughly before you go and then water when you get back. Also, you can put a sprinkler on a timer as well. So there's a few ways you can go around it if you must be away. But for the most part, you need to be home. For perennials, I know this is the time of year where a lot of places are getting rid of and putting some plants on sale, and they might be a little sad looking and a little beat up and a little bit of shock from being out in hot parking lots all season. So don't go by what the plant looks like above the pot because it might be sad, but you want to look and make sure that there are healthy roots. So if there are healthy roots and you're getting a good deal, then absolutely go ahead and purchase it. Go ahead and plant it. Not much might happen. You might need to do some trimming back, some deadheading. So not much might happen this season, but if the roots are good, and that's the most important part, then by next year, it's going to be great. And you're going to be very happy that you got such a good deal on that plant. So that's the most important thing, is making sure you are putting in something that's healthy, as well as you are around to make sure it gets enough water, especially in a drought. Like we've been getting a lot of rain. So if there's a lot of rain in the forecast and things are going to be watered by nature, it's less urgency compared to if we were heading into, a 2-week drought or something like that. So there's no reason to put off planting anything. Now's often a good time because you see where the holes are, you see where you need plants filled in, a color filled in, you see where you need shade with a shade tree. So don't hesitate, whether it's adding to your new garden, if you want to, or adding to your existing garden or creating a new garden. It's perfectly fine to plant now. Especially, if you go to reputable garden centers that are taking better, that are irrigated and taking good care, then those plants are really doing well. Or a grower, like I buy from the grower, they're being irrigated, they're being looked after very well. So the plant's going to rebound once it gets in the ground in its new garden very easily. So that's good to know. The other thing is that sometimes people panic with the thinking the summer and watering, that often the symptoms of overwatering look the same as underwatering. So if you are watering something and it's still not bouncing back or still not looking well, then really stick a screwdriver, stick a stick down. I always love my old wooden spoon. Buy yourself a new wooden spoon and get from the kitchen and get your old one and just stick it in. And if it's all wet and muddy at the end, then the water is getting down there. You just need give the plant a bit of time in order to absorb it and to take up the water into its stems. So yes, so don't put off what you can do later if you want to do it now. Sometimes people are on vacation now and you want to do it now versus waiting into September. We don't know what the fall these days with the fluctuating weather, we don't know what we're getting. So I think the biggest key is being around, having the time, certainly getting a good deal, and yeah, I think go ahead and plant. My second piece of midsummer advice is, in addition to it being this time of year, mid-July, is Japanese beetle season. Now, this topic brings up so many opinions and so many comments, no matter how you bring it up. But as soon as you mention it, so there are the diehard people who go around every morning with a soapy water in a bucket and kill all the Japanese beetles that way. And if you have time, go right ahead. Many of us do not have that time to do that and to do that level of inspection, and especially when the beetles might be only in one or two plants too. So I really strongly believe that the traps work. The key, and there's lots of naysayers online, and there are lots of people who are going to tell you, no, no, they're going to bring more. You're going to get all your neighbors' bugs. You're going to get the whole street's bugs. You need to read the instructions. You need to make sure there's only one trap within that area. So you don't need one. If you're in a dense neighborhood and suburbia, like most of us are, you don't, your neighbors and you all don't need your own traps. So you really need to look at the spacing. So I adjust my headset here. The spacing, and really keep to that. So you and your neighbors might be able to take turns. One year you buy it and it covers all three of you, and one year the next person buys it and it covers all three of you. So that is the biggest thing. The other thing is location. I see many pictures online where people are hanging them above their roses or hanging it above their plants in their garden or in the garden. No, you want to draw that bugs far, far away. So against a fence in the back corner, if you don't have any plants there, those where your air conditioner is between you and the neighbor, where it's all just shady and no plants there. Draw the Japanese beetles there to a dead zone in your yard, and that way they are not, stumbling on your garden and stumbling on new plants. The thing to remember is, if we don't get them all, they're the ones that lay the eggs in your lawn, and those turn into grubs. And then next year, those grubs hatch and become Japanese beetles, and you repeat the cycle. And it gets harder and harder to get rid of them. So I feel like the pheromone traps are a good way to attract them, dispose of them in an easy way possible. To me, I think dumping out the trap, as gross as that can be sometimes, it's better than the um, soap and bucket method, walking around your yard. So that's something to think about. But again, I really want to stress that you need to read the instructions and talk to your neighbors, find out if they have a trap happening. And if they do, that's great. Maybe you need to adjust it a little bit, make sure that they don't have it in their garden. Let them know that they need to have it in an area, even the front of the house by the garage, someplace where there's not a lot of plants. You want to draw them away so that they're not in your garden and laying eggs and feasting on your plants. So that is my advice. I know you'll have, again, many people say that they, attract, but I think the issue is when people have, some people think more is better, right? And, oh, well, my backyard's big, so I'll get 3 traps. No, you really need 1 trap. You need to just have that scent be enough for the plants in that area. And that area tends to be at least 2 properties. It really does. So yeah. My other thing that I'm seeing a lot of chatting about is a little bit of peer pressure. The gardeners are applying some peer pressure regarding native plants. Now, I am all for native plants. I've added many new ones to my garden. I try to design with as many as I feel comfortable with in my clients' gardens. But if you have a fully established garden, you do not need to pull plants out in order to if you don't want to. If you're happy with your garden, you do not have to remove things and substitute with native plants. Now, if you have something invasive, if you have something that's overgrown and you're not happy with it, then sure, now's a good time to maybe reconsider what could you put in that area. We definitely want to get rid of invasive plants and substitute them with something that's native. But it takes common sense. So that's really what I want to let people know. There are a lot of uh, non-native plants that are great pollinators. My catmint, my Roseanne geranium, two plants that I absolutely love. My Japanese anemone. Oh my goodness, the bees love them. So there are things to make sure that you add that, and I'm sure many of you are already doing that. And if I've designed a garden for you, then absolutely you have pollinators in your garden, just maybe not native ones. It does take a little while for native ones to get going. Majority of native plants, in my experience, are early spring ones as well as some fall ones, and asters, some of the yarrows, that type of thing. And goldenrod, even though I know everybody thinks that gives you allergies, it really doesn't. That's the ragweed, which is a completely different plant. They just both happen to be yellow and both happen to bloom at the same time. But goldenrod is actually a much nicer looking plant. And it is a great pollinator and it is native. So it gets a little bit of a bad rap. But so yeah, so I think there's ways for us to just slowly adapt and add some native plants to our garden in the right place at the right time. But I feel like there's some peer pressure that whenever you're considering a new plant that people are saying, oh, but it has to be native. So it really has to be the right plant in the right spot. Keep in mind also that a lot of the native plants actually spread. So we've got this whole big thing about invasives, but sometimes some of the native plants can be invasive and they can take over. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Japanese or not Japanese anemone, Canada anemone for one thing. I love it. I think it's a great plant. It's a long bloomer and it will be a great ground cover, but it's a bully and it will take over an area. So if you have a really tough area underneath a large evergreen and nothing else grows, Canada anemone will grow and it'll spread there. But if you've got another kind of shade garden where you've already got a lot of different things, including hostas and maybe you've got Solomon seal and maybe you've got ferns, adding Canada anemone to there, maybe you've even got trilliums. Canada, it's risky because Canada anemone could be a bit of a bully. So that's something to think about. With native plants, sometimes you can control how much they spread by their collecting their seeds. So after it's finished blooming, you cut off the seeds. Like I think of columbine. I've just finished deadheading all of my columbine in my one shade garden, and I'm happy with it spreading. I don't mind. So I was shaking out all the seed heads so that I have more flowers next year, more of a ground cover. And so that's if that works for you, then that's great. Or if I wanted it in a different area of my yard, then you go ahead and take those seed heads and spread the seeds there. But if you only don't want those few plants in an area and you don't want to keep producing more and more, then cut off the blooms after they're finished before they go to seed. And that'll save you having to worry about, weeding out those plants, unwanted plants later. You can always put them in a little baggie or a little jar and give them to a friend that they can maybe start from scratch next season, or they can sprinkle in their garden. So there's always gardeners that you can do a bit of a seed swap with if you want to. So that is my cautionary tale: is it's okay to be careful and considerate and really intentional with adding native plants to your garden. We want to feed the bees. We want to have the critters coming to our garden. And I've got a Maltese cross, which is a perennial that is not native, but it has a red flower. And I've got a hummingbird for the first time ever in my garden, even though I have a hummingbird feeder that they've never been to, but they found this garden or this plant. But they also, and there's the whole thing about, oh, it only eats from red. Well, right beside my Maltese cross was a white tall phlox. And sure enough, those tubular flowers are perfect, right? And the hummingbird was feeding from there as well. So they will come. There's lots of pollinator plants, and there's a lot of great native plants. So if this time of year, if you're looking to add something, you can look for. The other good thing is some are slow to get going. So butterfly weed is one of those. It's that orange. It's a popular plant for monarchs. but it's hard to get going. And sometimes in the spring, it's a really small plant, and then it gets kind of covered and hidden and falls apart. Has it for me. But this time of year, you might actually be able to find one in 1 gallon, like a substantial type of plant, and have better success in growing it. So it has an orange flower, likes dry, sandy soil. So that's something you could add this time of year. Liatris, tall purple spikes, you can find them in white as well. They're a nice because they're so tall and narrow. You can kind of tuck them into spots in your garden if you've got some spots. And yeah, so those are two that come to my mind right away. There's always the native coneflower, but again, that's something that can really seed badly. I'm battling that in my garden right now. Um, if you do have a spot for a shade plant, or sorry, a shade shrub, I would suggest looking for an oak leaf hydrangea that is native. I have three in a big grouping in my garden, and I am blown away by the variety, not just honeybees or big bees or bumblebees, like all these teeny tiny bees. There's so many things that are eating off of my oak leaf hydrangea. And if you are in the shade and want another suggestion, I have just recently learned more about goat's beard. It's a perennial. Now, it does like it a little bit on the damp side, which is good because that can be a tricky area in our gardens. But they will, once they're established, they will get to like 5 feet tall. So it's hard to find tall shade plants. Simicifuga or snake root, they can get tall every other year. They've got a burgundy foliage, so they can be lovely. But so yeah, so look for a Runcus, giant goat's beard. There are some nativars as well. I put 3 nativars in my garden this weekend because I didn't need anything that's going to get quite that tall, and I don't really have a wet spot. It's near the hose, so I can remember to water it. But I'm hoping that my Misty Lace goat's beard, that is a nativar, will be happy in my garden. So those are some things you can add that are off the top of my head right now that you can sneak into your garden and just be really mindful of, again, adding the right plant in the right spot. Lastly, I want to talk. We can't talk about gardening in your yards without, of course, talking about lawns. And it's always a debatable issue, right? Do we spend so much time worrying about our lawns? But I do want to talk about crabgrass. Mid-season is the time of year where we're going to see a lot of crabgrass. And if you don't know what it is, if you look at your lawn or maybe at the curb or at the end of your driveway, you're going to see it looks kind of like grass, except the leaves are much wider and a little bit more of a chartreuse green. So it'll look a little lighter than your lawn grass. Sometimes they're often flat in the center as they get going, especially when they're in the curb or along where the curb meets the asphalt on the road or at the end of our driveways. They can be flat. As they start to grow, they kind of grow are all in bunches, and then as they start to grow flat, and then they will get all these long seed heads along the outside. So the key is, especially when they're in your lawn, getting them out, digging them out before they go to seed. They are an annual, so those ones that are in your lawn right now won't come back. That's going to die after winter. But the seeds that they make will reproduce, and that's going to be the crabgrass for next year. So if you don't take care of it and get rid of it now, then you're going to have even more crabgrass next year. And especially if you trim your grass, cut your grass when it's gone to seed. So now you're not only going to have seed in that area that you have now. Now, when you cut your grass and throw those seeds heads everywhere else, it contributes to the spread of crabgrass. So one little tip that I was thinking is, as much as it's beneficial to leave your grass clippings on the grass, I think if you have a lot of crabgrass or a lot of weeds in general, then it's probably best to bag your grass for a couple of weeks, especially with the big growing season, July, August, and beginning of September for the weeds. And then that way, those weed seeds will not be back in, you're not spreading them and then you're not introducing them back into your lawn, and hopefully you can get on top of them in the spring. A pre-emergent, so something that you can put down in the lawn in the spring that will prevent weed seeds from germinating. So that's something that you can also, if weeds are a concern for you, that's something you can do. So it sticks to the plant and it prevents them from germinating and creating seed. Um, And that usually takes, it's not an immediate thing because all these products are more natural and less chemical for our health, which is good. So it takes a few treatments before they work really well in the garden. So those are my ideas, is to really take it easy. But if you can go around and dig up the clumps of crabgrass, I did invest in one of those little burners. So if you see those weed burners, Lee Valley has one. Um, it has like a little propane canister like this big, and I attach it and I go around and I can. Now the thing is that they burns, especially in the sidewalk, right? It burns it burns the weeds, so it makes them disappear. It kills them, I should say. It kills the weeds, but they don't necessarily disappear. So now you've got dried up weeds in your interlock or on the edge of your driveway or the road curb and things like that. So, and in your lawn now, I think you will have. But I think in that case, in the lawn, if you've burnt it, the good grass is going to grow in very quickly and fill that area. So that's something to think about. So that's a handy tool. And I don't, again, all these products that I mentioned, I have no skin in the game or anything. These are just things that I use in my own garden. My one neighbor swears by removing the weed and dropping some salt, like the de-icing salt from the winter. She drops those in the holes to make sure that nothing grows back. So that's how she is assured that she won't have any problems. And believe me, their lawn is the best on my street. So those are my tips, and then my mid-season advice from lots of things I've seen online and customers and clients asking me. So I want to get everybody assured that there's still lots of time for gardening, lots of time for enjoying. I hope you're sitting out there and enjoying your garden. If you need anything from me, please let me know. I can deliver plants if you need. I can come by and do a quick consultation to see what plants you might need, or even help you if you do want some help with native plants and what situation and what area that you have. I would love to help. So, and if you are virtual and not in the GTA or Durham region, then reach out as well, and maybe we can have a quick Zoom, or you can send me some photos, and we can do an online consultation. This season. So yeah. So again, this episode is brought to you by Down the Garden Path, or sorry, it is Down the Garden Path podcast, but it's brought to you by Down to Earth Landscape Design. My book, please reach out if you want a copy of my book. There's a link on my website that helps you with the timely tips of what to do. And July and August and September can start to get, there's specific things you need to do at specific times. So my book really helps with that. So have a look. It is available by the same name as the podcast, Down the Garden Path, and it is available on Amazon US and Amazon Canada. So thanks everybody for listening. I love bringing you helpful and timely topics and tips to help you with your garden. If you have something specific you want to hear about, please drop me a note and let me know. You can reach me at Joanne at downtoearth.ca, and that's number 2. And I look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye for now.